This is Edge of the Box, a podcast brought to you by WhoScored.com.
Hello and welcome to a very special edition of Edge of the Box, the podcast by Who Scored. This week, a bit of a special show. We're going to look ahead to the looming transfer deadline day, and we are joined by transfer royalty. This unfortunately means that no place for my hero, Jonathan Wilson, this week, but he will be back next week. It's always good to have a big squad and get some rotation in. So, I mean, Martin, shall we reveal who it is coming in on the show? I mean, to be fair, he's been revealed on social media, so I'll let you do the big intro to him.
Yeah. No, so, like you say, transfer royalty, here we go. Fabrizio Romano will be on the show in 10 minutes or so. So really interested to get his insight on the sort of looming deals in the coming days. Obviously, it's been a quiet transfer window, so hopefully he can shed some light on some sort of activity over the next few days.
Yeah, I mean, before we're joined by the legend of a man, let's just go through a few deals that actually have taken place this week, because it's been really quiet, but it has picked up ever so slightly. I mean, when I say it's picked up, 3 relatively big deals have gone through, which doesn't feel massive, but we're going to talk about them now. So the first one is Erdogan joined Arsenal, been mooted for the last few weeks, really. Slight concern for me there for Arsenal is that really gives Smith Rowe some problems in staying in the team, and he's been excellent for them in recent weeks. Yeah,
it definitely does. But at the same time, I don't think, as excellent as he has been, I don't think there's a plan from Arteta to say that he's a nailed-on starter for the rest of the season. Obviously, it will come with form and fitness. I think he went off in the last game, actually, with a slight injury. So I think he needed options because you cannot rely, as good as he's been, you can't rely on a youngster like that to just keep performing, no. Even though Saka's done it for quite a long time, to be fair. But to rely on Smith Rowe would be maybe naive. We'll see. But we won't see because they don't need to anymore. But I think the key with Erdogan is he does have versatility, and he does give them options. I think personally, from a Who Scored perspective as well, in terms of his ratings, where he's played, we had a piece out this week where his best rating is actually from the right.
Yeah, so I was surprised about that.
Yeah, well, to be fair, that was basically where he played in Eredivisie with Vitesse, and obviously there's a little sort of Eredivisie tax that goes into stats, because a lot of people, especially attackers, throw up some amazing stats in the Netherlands, and he certainly did that. He was actually a replacement for Mason Mount, in effect, at the time at Vitesse, and he's exceptional, basically playing off the right because he's left-footed. So there is that option. But then what that does is that would then probably force Bukayo Saka back out to the left. And Bukayo Saka has been so good from the right as well, because he's left-footed. And I think before, his game looked like getting down the line and using the width. But now that he's sort of having the opportunity to come inside and onto his stronger foot, he looks really, really good playing from the right as well. So there is the opportunity of what I think Arsenal fans will see as this sort of holy trinity of youngsters, where Saka could play right, Smith Rowe in the middle, and Erdogan. Saka could play left, Smith Rowe in the middle, and Erdogan on the right, and that could work. And I'm sure we probably will see that at some point. But it will all be down to rotation. That would obviously then negate one of the strikers, one of Upamecano or Lacazette coming in. But it's options, isn't it? The schedule for the rest of the season is going to be absolutely hectic. So I wouldn't worry too much about Smith Rowe not seeing playing time, but he will naturally see less than he has been.
I mean, I'm thinking off the cuff here. I think I've been playing too much Football Manager recently. In recent times, obviously, there's absolutely nothing to do in general life. So you could see them actually go back to 3 at the back, couldn't you? With Tierney playing left centre-back, Saka at left wing-back. Then the 2 sitting midfielders, Odegaard in the hole. They could play 2 up front. It gives them that option, doesn't it? You're saying about losing the striker. They could actually play Lacazette and Aubameyang as a pair and kind of go 5-2-1-2.
Yeah, I think, like you said,
I like that.
There you go, you sorted it. That's what this sort of a deal like this can open up. It opens up sort of tactical variations, and I don't think Arteta's a manager who's sort of nailed down to one system either, and we've seen that already. So yeah, and Erdogan can play in a midfield 3. Obviously, he needs a bit of assurance alongside him, but with Partey and probably Xhaka, you do get that to an extent. So he could play in a midfield 3. He can play in the 10. He can play from the right. So options, isn't it? And I just think, I see him going pretty well, to be fair. I'm not convinced that Erdogan starts every game either. Like, he's got to he's got to fight for his place. There's options. There's players playing well there now, obviously. But yeah, he'll get plenty of playing time and plenty of time to impress. And it'll be interesting to see whether Arsenal can extend that deal beyond this season.
Yeah, I mean, we've got our man coming on the show later. I'm sure he'll be able to tell us more about that. To be honest, I'm still thinking about my tactical solution that I've just come up with. Honestly, I think I've fixed Arsenal. I have fixed Arsenal there.
Incredibly deep in thought while I was talking. It looked like you were really disapproving of what I was saying, but it's good to know that you just sort of coming up with, in your own world, coming up with tactical solutions.
I tell you
replacing Jonathan in that.
I was going to say, Jonathan's gone away. Let's get a new presenter in next week. Let me be the formation guy, the tactics guy. I'm showing my stock there. Someone else who gives a team options is Morgan Sanson. He's joined Villa from Marseille, and really, obviously, we're both Villa fans. There isn't a place in the team for him at the moment, but we saw last night with Villa, they're desperate for something off the bench. So what he actually gives the football club is, if he starts, Villa will have a better player on the bench to bring on, or he's on the bench to come and change games like last night, where Villa just really needed someone to put their foot on the ball, didn't they?
Yeah, for sure. And it's the same sort of scenario. Obviously, really different players, but it's the versatility that he will offer to Dean Smith, and the ability again to change tactics. And that's what Villa can't really do at the moment, because Sanson has played in a double pivot. He's played in a 3. He's played as a 10. So yeah, exactly. Those sort of options. He's actually very good from deep, in my opinion, as well. So those options will really suit us. And I think he's, as he said himself, he's a warrior, and he presses high up the pitch. So he'll buy into that. He'll buy into the work rate. So I think he's a good fit. And yeah, I think what we've seen as well with John McGinn, I've said it before, and then he goes on and has a real big impact in the last sort of 10 minutes. But I think he tires in matches just based on the way he plays. And Dean Smith never brings him off, even if and he has some poor games. He's great. Everyone loves John McGinn. Who doesn't? But he has some poor games, and there are games where I think, well, he should probably go off here. And I'd say similar to Ross Barkley as well. He's been great signing, obviously, but he's not firing all the time. He's not that sort of Mr. Consistent. So, like you say, we need strength in depth, and that's what he offers. And we need more in attack, I would say. But with Harahan leaving the club, we obviously just had Jacob Ramsey as the one to sort of try and impact things from in midfield. Obviously, you've got Nakamba there who played really, really well, I thought, in McGinn's absence through suspension. He was excellent. But he's not a game changer. He's a good squad player. I'm not implying Sanson's a game changer, but it's strength in depth. And if Villa are going to push on to the next level, which I know they're obviously every team is keen to do, then it's those options from the bench that will take Villa to the next level.
I mean, I think one of the main reasons Villa have taken up this deal is price, because he was mooted has been a £30 million player in various other transfer windows, and Villa have picked him up for rising to 15.5 million. I think in the modern day transfer market, that's decent business, isn't it? Yeah,
like I said at the time, I think personally, I think it's a pretty fair price. Like if Villa had been in for around 30 million, like you say, or 25, 30 million, I think that's probably a bit much. Just because he's obviously only played in Liga. We don't know how he'll adapt. By all accounts, he's the sort of player who should adapt well, and he's got a skill set that should suit the Premier League. But I was a little bit concerned by that, just more based on his sort of progression. He's been a really steady performer, but certainly I had my own in when he was sort of 19, 20 at Montpellier, and he was one of the biggest talents in the league at that time. He actually got a rating of 7.41, which is excellent from us in 2014-15, and that was an identical rating to Idrissa Gueye at the time, and we signed him the next summer. And obviously he's gone on to be a big success. But yeah, since that, I wouldn't say he's regressed, but he's been a steady performer. I don't think he's really hit that next level. So hopefully he can do that at Villa. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty fair price for both parties. But I do agree that it's a good price for Villa, because it looks like that's the price point that the club are sort of aiming at for now. We're signing a lot of players between the sort of 10 and 20 million mark, and that's because of depth. That's because of they want a strong squad, and he offers that. So yeah, a good signing in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think people don't actually realise how wealthy Villa are, and I think people will be surprised in the summer. I think the club will make some big moves, and I think they'll spend some serious money as well. So, obviously, me and you both excited about that. In previous podcasts, we spoke about Wolves. They needed a striker. If any team needed a player in this window, I would say it would have been Wolves and getting that striker in, and they've got one in Willian Jose. I'm not sure how you say it, if I'm being perfectly honest, but is he the man to replace Jimenez and give them what they've been lacking?
I think it's a smart signing in that to me, it is more likely that he'll be a stopgap. Obviously, he's on loan with an option to buy, which I think is around 20 million euros. It seems quite high, but full disclosure, I wasn't convinced by Raul Jimenez when they signed him. I wasn't. Obviously, after he played, I was, but when they signed him, wasn't sure that he would be as good, certainly as good as he has been, and as pivotally as he has been, because that's what it is. They're missing their most important player, their player that sort of ties everything together up front and links those really talented little creators. And obviously, Adama Traore's gone off the boil without Jimenez to aim at. So in Williams, they've got a target man. They've got a focal point. He's very, very good in the air. Only one player has scored more headed goals since he went to Real Sociedad about 4 years ago, I think. So good in the air, brings others into play well. So those are sort of big check marks off the box, because that's what they've really been missing. Fabio Silva's actually been improving. It's been really, really tough for him.
It's a big ask.
19-year-old kid hasn't really even played that much in Portugal before now. So massive ask for him. And yeah, I think William Jose is obviously a lot more experienced, stronger. Like I said, should bring others into play a little bit better. He's not a natural sort of 20 goal a season man, but he's a steady goal scorer. He tends to score between 10 and 15 a season. Obviously, we're halfway through now, so he won't manage that. But if he can get, even if it's like 6-7 goals, it's more to do with how he links the play up front and how he can bring others into it, and getting the best from Adama and Neto and Podence, who are actually aren't playing badly, but they don't have that final finish that Jimenez provides. So yeah, he's been a massive blow. But I agree, that was the one that had to get done. They had to get someone, and I think it makes sense. Obviously, we don't know how long Jimenez is going to be out for, but it makes sense to go for a sensible option in terms of a short-term loan. We can review Jimenez in a few months' time, how his situation is, what that looks like, because that's obviously a really complicated injury, and go from there. So I'm not convinced they'll buy him outright, but to have that option is obviously good. So yes, I think it's a pretty smart signing. Not sure who they had as alternatives, to be honest, but yeah, I think it's one that should do all right.
I mean, I'm looking at the stats here. Obviously, we love our stats here on Who Scored, you in particular. I mean, the only thing that Jimenez comes out on top of in the head-to-head is assists. Everything else, Willian's got the number on him, to be fair. I mean, his headed goals, 16. That's very, very impressive. 52 goals overall in 119 starts is pretty impressive as well. And his pass accuracy, which I think is actually a big thing, because Wolves rely on their striker being a focal point and bringing other players into play. With the assists 15 and the pass accuracy, that's key for Wolves, isn't it?
Yeah, and he's used to playing with impressive attackers around him as well. At Sociedad, they've got Mikel Oyarzabal. They had Erdogan last season. Now they've got David Silva, obviously. So he's used to playing with those little technical players around him.
Yeah.
So that's important as well. So I think that's something that definitely will have been looked at. Came off the bench last night. Full disclosure, didn't watch the game because I was watching the Villa game. But yeah, we'll see. I don't expect spectacular things from him. But if he can, it's more important that he knits the team together and gives them that focal point, because they haven't had an outball. They haven't had an outball to hit, and that's really affected Wolves. Who've been obviously mainly down to Jimenez. They've been probably one of the most disappointing teams of the season in terms of their form and their results.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see what an impact he has, but I wouldn't say it's too much. I wouldn't expect too many goals from him. But if he can just sort of get them back to something close to where they were in terms of their style of play, then that's what Wolves need more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, they've had 2 great seasons in the Premier League, in fairness, finishing 7th, I think, 2 seasons in a row. They're not going to do that this season. So, like you say, Jimenez has been a big reason for that. They've actually not been that impressive to watch. Whenever I've watched them, I find them quite a difficult watch at times. So, to be fair, that was the case with Jimenez on occasion, but he's such a big miss for them, and it was really important for them that they got a deal over the line. Now, let's face it, not many people care about what me and you think about transfers, do they? But everyone cares about what Fabrizio Romano says. So should we bring him in?
Let's do it.
So here we go. We're joined by the man, the myth, the transfer-breaking legend, Fabrizio Romano. Welcome, Fabrizio. Thanks ever so much for coming on the podcast.
Hello, guys. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the kind words. Big pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, I mean, Twitter goes absolutely wild whenever you log in. You're here to discuss all things Premier League ahead of the transfer deadline day. But first, we just wanted to offer our listeners a little insight into your career and your growth, because you really have become the go-to guy with transfers all across Europe now.
Yes, first of all, I want to say again, thank you, just because it's kind to hear from you this kind of words. I'm just a journalist. I always say that I'm just trying to do my best. And I'm happy for sure, just because, as you mentioned on social media, it's been really a nice journey, because like in the last 2 years, it's been like an enormous boom for me, for my accounts and everything. And I'm proud just because I try to do my best for this work. So I really live 24 hours for the transfers and everything. Also, when the window is closed, I'm always in touch with people, with agents, with directors. That's my secret, to be like a friend for the people and not just a journalist that is calling you if you are going to do a transfer in some days, but also preparing a real relationship with the person. And then we have the news also thanks to our relationship. And so that's my idea. I try to do my best, as I mentioned, every day, just because it's not so easy to try to cover different leagues and different clubs and important moves. Yeah. But I think it's funny. It's also funny. That's why I love transfers, because every day can happen everything. So that's my idea. And thank you again.
Yeah, and Martin, it's great to have Fabrizio on the show, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. Like, we're really excited to hear from you. Obviously, we know how busy you are in these days. It's interesting to hear, obviously, how you sort of make sure that you keep busy outside of the transfer windows as well, because that was going to be something I was interested to know. Because this period must be crazy.
Yes, this period is crazy. Just really, I sleep like 5 hours, and I think only transfers. So it's really difficult for me, but I like it. So difficult is in a different way, just because you have to be always ready. But I really like it. Also, out of the window, as I mentioned before, I try to be always in touch with people, to find new contacts, to find new sources. Just because if you call an agent or a director or a source in football only when you need the news, it will be so difficult to have a good relationship and to get in touch and to have the news, the exclusive news sometimes. If you are always like ready to talk with these people, also when it's out of the market, to have a good relationship after a match, for example, or when they are going with a new player, these kind of things are so important in our work. So I try to do my best really always on this side. Then obviously I'm working on transfers during the window. When the window is closed, I'm doing also different things, like with the Guardian, some interviews and this kind of stuff. So it depends really month by month, but I'm always thinking to transfer, also because the transfer board right now is really changing. So day by day, you have to be always like updated also about the renewal of contracts, for example, or possible deal for the summer. So you have to prepare what's going on for the next window. So it's important to be always connected, because if you are like out for 1 month or 2 months, you're died. That's my mentality. So that's it. Always fighting.
Yeah, it sounds like an awful lot goes into doing what you do. Fabrizio, is there like a transfer you remember breaking that kind of took your reputation to the next level and got you to where you are today?
I would say yes, and I would mention 2 transfers, just because the first one, my first important transfer, was here in Italy, and was important for me because I was starting with Sky by some months. It was my first experience with Sky, and I broke the news of Mauro Icardi joining Inter from Sampdoria, and here in Italy was a huge news and no one reported it. And I was so lucky, just because the first agent I met in my life, he gave me the news like 6 months before, like in November. He told me next summer Icardi will go to Inter. He was working on this deal, and so as Sky, they were really without words when I mentioned this transfer 6 months before. And then he joined Inter. Everyone here in Italy was reporting about Juventus, about Napoli, and then he joined Inter really. And for me, it was something special, because really was the first one at top level, and Really, I want impossible to forget this kind of feelings. And on international side, I would mention Bruno Fernandes to Manchester United, just because I remember the summer. I spent all the summer to say that I didn't have any info about Bruno Fernandes joining Manchester United, despite Portuguese journal and everything reporting every day that Bruno was going to Manchester United during the summer. I said no like 1 million times, and people were against me, saying, "Why, Fabrizio, you are destroying our dreams?" Then in January, when I mentioned, "Here we go with Bruno Fernandes," they understood that I was going to respect them, just to share real news. And that's my idea always, to be accurate. That's my idea, not just to be first. It's important to be accurate with people and respectful with people and with your news. So I would say Icardi here in Italy, and then Bruno Fernandes on the international side.
Is there like a crazy transfer as well? One that just had so many twists and turns, one that you might have been a bit hesitant to report just in case it didn't happen, and then suddenly one day, the next, it looked like it was going to happen? Has there been any crazy ones?
Yes, I had many crazy ones. You can't be always perfect in your work. So yes, I remember that happened one time, that Adrien Rabiot signed his contract as a free agent, because when you're a free agent, you can sign a pre-contract also with different clubs, and then you can decide. So it's a dangerous situation for a journalist, just because you can change your mind in really 2 or 3 days, and you are changing your transfer. When there is a club, it's difficult, just because the club has the agreement with the other club. Okay, the player makes a decision, but when 2 clubs have the agreement, it's really difficult to change the way. But when you are a free agent, like happened with Rabiot, he had the pre-contract signed with Barcelona, so it was seeming like 100% sure that he was going to join Barcelona as a free agent from Paris Saint-Germain. And then in 2 weeks, he changed his mind. He decided to change and to go to Juventus, because they made a different bid also to his agent and everything. I was really surprised, but this is part of the game, really. Also, last summer, what happened with David Silva, it was a done deal to Lazio. Lazio director was furious with David just because it was signed, the pre-contract again, and also David was going to have medicals with Lazio. It was totally done, and then he decided the day after to join Real Sociedad because of his family. But I think that people are going to understand that in this world, you never can be like 100% sure about what's happening. You can tell them what's happening in the reality, but you're not the player. So I can't decide for players. I can just say what's going on at the moment. That's my work.
Yeah, I mean, I could sit here and talk to you about your career all day long, because I find it so interesting, but people really will want to know about what's going on with the Premier League transfers and with the deadline day looming. I'll come to you, Martin. I think we said on our previous podcast that it's going to be a relatively quiet January transfer window, and so far that's proved true, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. I think obviously there's been a few that have gone through in the last week or so that we've discussed, with the William Jose, Morgan Sanson, and obviously Martin Odegaard. So it's sped up a little bit, and obviously Fabrizio will know more than anyone. It does speed up in these coming days, but I think it's a sign of the times that it will be more quiet. And people are having to be more cautious with their finances, obviously. But yeah, hopefully there's some action in the coming days across the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, fingers crossed for Fabrizio, because that is his job to report on transfers, and the managerial merry-go-round has started moving a little bit more for Fabrizio. So Thomas Tuchel's gone to Chelsea, had his first game last night, a 0-0 draw with Wolves. Was he their first choice? Because we know they've had interest in other managers, German-speaking managers. Do you think maybe Tuchel might be a stopgap appointment, or is he the one for Chelsea?
I think he was the first choice, yes, just because for many weeks they've been offered Tuchel as a possibility from a big agent, and they were considering him as a real possibility since really 2 or 3 weeks. So Roman Abramovich wanted this kind of manager, so good on the pitch, good in the relationship with the player, just because when you are working this kind of top clubs, the relationship you have with the stars and with top players is so important. Then obviously German manager, just because speaking the same language of Havertz, of Werner, after spending 150 million euro on these players, and they were not performing with Lampard, so they were needing something different. So it was the first choice in this moment. I don't know for the future, because in football everything can change in 6 months, as we saw with Lampard. But at the moment they were convinced with Tuchel. Yes, they also had other options. I saw something about Ragnick, also about Massimiliano Allegri, but they didn't want an Italian manager again. So he was in this moment the first option. Then if they had other managers available, I don't know. For example, a lot of mentions about Nagelsmann, but Nagelsmann was impossible to be part of this game with Chelsea just because Leipzig won't ever let him go in the middle of the season. But at the moment, they are convinced with Tuchel, and we will see. In my opinion, the most interesting part with Tuchel will be next summer when they will decide for the new signings, because the big problem for Tuchel at Paris Saint-Germain was in the relationship with Leonardo to decide the signings, to work on the market together. Many times they had problems because they didn't have the same ideas about the players and the style they want to go on with the market. And the relationship with the player was amazing, also with Neymar, Mbappe, and it's not so easy to have good relationship with these kind of stars in the same dressing room. So I think he will be great on the pitch because Tuchel is a good manager, but I'm really curious to see what's going on with Marina and with people around the club on the market next summer.
Yeah, because obviously he's joined quite late in January, so you'd imagine it's going to be very difficult for him to have a say in bringing in any players. Do you think, though, there's any early indication into players that Tuchel might want to bring in the future, players that he might not fancy at Chelsea?
At the moment, there is nothing advanced, obviously, because if I mention some names, I would be like inventing, because at the moment they have not decided anything and they are not signing any player in the next days. Just because the main problem at Chelsea, also the board knows that signing like 10 or 11 new players last summer and not having the time to have a real team, just because this year, as we know, has been really crazy also on the pitch. So you can't have any training. You are just playing and preparing matches day by day, only 3 days in the Premier League and in the Champions League and then the domestic cups. So it's been really difficult. Also, no pre-season, no friendly matches. So it's been really, really complicated. So now signing new players will be just a problem for Chelsea and not a solution. So for next summer, we will see. For sure, Tuchel has a good influence on players from the Bundesliga. And in this moment, it's a good thing for Chelsea because when you sign players from the Bundesliga, now they have amazing talents. So they will try for sure for this kind of players, Bundesliga talents. We will see. At the moment, the situation is that they will decide around March and April what kind of players they need, also because Tuchel wants to know more about the team, about the players, about the guys, and not just about the player. For him, it's important also the connection with the person and not just with the player himself. So they're going to decide in the coming months, but I'm sure that they know that they need to go together, because if they don't go together, they will have the same problem that Tuchel had at Paris Saint-Germain.
Yeah, I guess as well, Martin, that Chelsea in March, as Fabrizio just alluded to, they might know more about what's going to be ahead for them in the following season. At the moment, that they're not really one of the favourites to get in the top four, are they?
No, they're not. It would be a tough job for him to do that, and obviously that would be a massive success now if they get top four. That's a real sort of feather in his cap, a real success for him. So it'll be interesting to see. I thought last night they got a little bit of criticism because obviously it wasn't a particularly exciting game, but I actually thought it was a decent start for him, just because they have been in a bit of disarray recently, and he had 1 day's training, and they dominated the ball. They kept possession very well. All right, it wasn't that exciting, but they tried a new formation. We saw him sort of lean towards the players that actually was speculated that he did like Jorginho and Antonio Rudiger, and obviously Mason Mount was dropped. So it was a really interesting team lineup, formation, and obviously they didn't get the goal or create too many great chances. But I thought it was a decent enough start, and like he said at the time, something to build on.
Yeah, I think a clean sheet always does give you something to build on. And Fabrizio, talking of Tuchel, his former club, Paris Saint-Germain, they've been heavily linked with Dele Alli. What are the chances of a reunion with him and Pochettino?
Well, there are good chances just because the deal is like almost ready. So they have the agreement. Dele Alli wants to go to Paris Saint-Germain. Paris Saint-Germain want only Dele Alli. So he's the priority in the market, and we will see if they will sign him. But they want or Dele Alli or nothing. That's the idea in this moment. We will see, just because it's up to Tottenham owner Daniel Levy. He doesn't want Dele Alli to leave if he doesn't have a replacement. So in the coming days, they will look for a replacement. They had an idea about Christian Eriksen, but he's not leaving Inter in the coming days, just because Inter can't sign any replacement for Christian Eriksen. So it's a complicated domino, but at the moment, Eriksen is not moving. And that's why Tottenham are not signing at the moment any replacement. They have some problems to decide with a new potential player. And so that's why Dele Alli is blocked. He's pushing to go. He's pushing to go just because he's not playing. In my opinion, we're talking about an amazing talent with no space, and it's a pity to not see these kind of players on the pitch. With Pochettino, is really has this enormous desire to have him back. Dele Alli with himself working at Paris Saint-Germain would be good. Also for the player with a new league, proving himself in a different contest. So we will see in the coming days, but for sure Paris Saint-Germain will push till the last minute of the deadline day, and it will be up to Tottenham. If they find the replacement, the player will go. If they don't, the player will stay.
Yeah, I mean, this really does look like one that will go right down to the wire. How close can transfers actually go? Can they literally go down to the last minute?
Yes. They can go down also after the last minute. I saw many crazy things in this year, really. This year I saw a lot of crazy situations. But yes, sometimes happens that you have the agreement, as I mentioned, you sign some contract, and then the deal collapses. Or you can have problems with the medicals also when the player is in the city, as happened last time in Italy, last window in Italy, like 2 or 3 times. So yes, can happen also like these crazy things. But we will see. I think that with Dele Alli, it will be resolved on the coming days, because if Tottenham want a replacement, they know that they have to sign the replacement like before Sunday or Monday. They have to be ready, just because they can't sign a surprise replacement. So we will see. But sometimes, yes, with transfer, also crazy things can happen at the last minute.
Yeah, I mean, Martin, it would be a massive move for Dele Alli being reunited with his old manager, because at the moment the Euros are looming and he's absolutely nowhere near the England squad.
Yeah, I think it'll be tough either way in that regard for him to make it. Obviously, I would never doubt Fabrizio Romano, but my opinion on whether they actually need a replacement, I don't know. It seems a bit of an odd one. He's only played 75 minutes in the Premier League this season. What are they replacing? They're replacing a shadow, essentially, and a wasted talent. They've got Lo Celso and Dembele. They've got good players there that can play that position and are playing that position. So it's a strange one that they feel like they need it, which they clearly do feel like they need it. And I don't know who they're looking at, because I know they were linked to Florian Neuhaus recently, and a few clubs linked with him. But yeah, it's a tough one to see going through, I think, just because, like Fabrizio says, they need to have been working on this for a few days. It's not something they're just going to do in the last minute, a snap decision like that. I wouldn't have thought.
No, I mean, and Fabrizio, their North London rivals Arsenal, they have got a deal over the line recently. Erdogan's joined from Real Madrid. Was there anyone else in for him, or was it just a straight shot at it for Arsenal?
At the moment, there is nothing advanced that we can't exclude anything, just because they've been, in my opinion, so smart to sell and release players this month, because for the clubs, the main problem at the moment are the salaries. Just because the top clubs are paying top salaries to the player, but they have no incoming money from the stadium, from the sponsor, from the merchandising, because of the situation where we are. So they have a lot of problems with the salaries, and so letting Socrates go, and the same with Ozil, and the same with Saliba on loan, the same with Kolasinac, has been really smart, because now they have the possibility of doing something interesting. So they signed Odegaard. They are so happy with this signing, just because it's exactly the player they were needing. It's also so talented. They hope next summer, if the situation will change at Real Madrid, we will see with the new manager, who knows, they can also try to sign the player like on a permanent deal or another loan. They will decide next summer. But what I mentioned is that at the moment they are not planning for anything else. But you know better than me that on the transfer market, when the window is open, also opportunities can arrive, like players on loan. I make exactly the example of Odegaard, just because 2 weeks ago it was impossible to sign Odegaard on loan. Then after the last match in the Copa del Rey, the player asked to Zidane to leave just because he wasn't playing. He was close to join Real Sociedad, and then Arsenal know about this possibility, and they signed the player. So in January, the transfers is more than during the summer, where you plan for your targets and you sign your targets. In January, you have the opportunities. You have to be ready with the opportunities. So if Arsenal will find some opportunity, they will go for a new player. If not, at the moment, I think they will stay like this. They won't go for any big move like 20, 30, 40 million euro.
And what kind of loan deal is it, Fabrizio? Is it one where Arsenal might look to purchase him in the summer, or do you think it's a short-term loan?
It's a short-term loan for sure, just because at the moment the position from Real Madrid is that the player is coming back. He's their player. They are happy with his skills. They are convinced he's an amazing talent. So they are still convinced that Odegaard will be back and play for Real Madrid. But as I mentioned, at Real Madrid, things change really quick, just because if they change with the manager, for example, next summer, or they go with a different project, or they sign a new number 10 position player, they can also decide to sell Odegaard. Look at what they did with Hakimi, for example, with Borussia Dortmund. Yeah. He was they were convinced of the player coming back. He will be our right back for the future. And then they sold him to Inter for 40 million euro because they had the opportunity. So who knows? Next summer they will decide. They have an amazing relationship between Arsenal and Real Madrid. They will meet and they will decide about Dani Ceballos and about Martin Odegaard. So for sure it will be a discussion. They will decide together. But first of all, it's time for Martin to show his skills in the Premier League. Then we will see next summer.
Yeah, I mean, he's only 22. He's a player who feels like he's been around forever, isn't he, Martin? But really, he's still a young boy.
Yeah, he is, and obviously proved himself last year really on loan at Real Sociedad. And I know a lot of fans, Real Madrid fans, were excited to see him obviously get more opportunities. But I think this is a really nice loan for him. It's a really good level of club for him to go to and try and prove himself. And it's not worked for everyone that's gone there on loan. There's been a few, like Denis Suarez in the past, struggled to make an impact, but I don't see that with Erdogan. I just think he's the type of player that Arteta really likes and really wants, and he's not just a creator either. He works hard for the team. So I think it's a really smart signing for Arsenal, even if there are the sort of minor concerns that it might block pathways of the sort of youngsters at the club that are playing well as it is.
Yeah, and talking of loans, Fabrizio, Jesse Lingard's one that everyone's expecting to make the move on loan from Manchester United. It seems to be West Ham. Who are the favourites? Is there anything you know of that deal?
Yes, they're leading the race. Yes, so it's West Ham and also West Bromwich asking for him. But Manchester United are open to let him go if they have the right opportunity. And it's the same for Marcos Rojo to Boca Juniors if they have a good opportunity to complete the deal in the coming days. And they're convinced, yes, just because the player wants to be back in Argentina. So they hope that the deal will be completed also because Rojo as Lingard, they are not playing. So yes, both could leave the club. Also Facundo Pellistri, the young talent of Manchester United. They know that now with Diallo joining the club, he would have also less space than he had. So at the moment, he could go on loan. So for sure, they're preparing some loan deals in the coming days, and I don't expect anything big at the moment for Manchester United. I saw some rumors about Upamecano, but he's not joining any club in January. So at the moment, the situation is really quiet around Manchester United, and they will work on this deal for Lingard for sure.
Yeah. What happened with Jaden Sancho? Because obviously he was linked all summer, and you wouldn't expect a big move to go through like that in January. Do you think they'll be back in for him in the summer?
Yes, in January was just, as you mentioned, impossible because for Borussia Dortmund, selling players in January is always impossible. So it's typical from German clubs. They are so regular, so they won't sell this kind of players in January. But next summer, I think, yes, I think it will be the moment for Borussia Dortmund to sell Jaden Sancho. Is the right moment also because the player needs to do this next step to top team. He was really close, one step away from joining Manchester United last summer. The agreement was done with the player and also with Borussia Dortmund. They were really close. Then the situation changed because of the position of Borussia Dortmund, and that's why the deal collapsed. But next summer, I think we will be back in the race with Jadon Sancho on the transfers. So for sure, Manchester United will be interested again, because they saved money. So they were ready to spend like 100 million euro on Jadon Sancho. And then they ended signing Cavani as a free agent, total different players, obviously, but they changed the strategy, probably saving money. If they wanted to spend 80 million euro on another player like Dembele from Barcelona, they could have done this just because Dembele was on the market, and they decided not to save money. So I expect Manchester United to try again for Jadon Sancho, but we will see also in this case the strategy they will have. And also other clubs to be involved in the race, just because last summer Manchester United were the only club really interested in Sancho, but next summer anything can happen because the race is open again. Borussia Dortmund are open to talk also with other clubs, and so let's see what's going on.
Now, this next one I'm going to ask you is a really important one, Fabrizio, because Martin and myself, both big Aston Villa fans now. Jack Grealish was linked with Manchester United again all summer. He signed a new contract at Villa. Villa are going excellently in the Premier League despite losing last night. The talk of Grealish to Manchester United or another elite club, it's not going to go away. Is there anything you can tell us about Jack Grealish?
At the moment, there is nothing advanced with Grealish just because Aston Villa wants to decide next summer and not right now. So they have no advanced discussion with any club. I also saw links with Manchester City and other clubs. And for sure, this player is scouted by many clubs and appreciated by his top clubs because we are talking one of the best players in the world, in my opinion, in this moment. Really underrated, but I really like it. And like him, and what I want to mention is that at the moment there is really nothing advanced with these clubs, and this is also important to understand that if we will be in the same situation with football next summer, so with no fans in the stadium, with no guarantees about sponsor and these kind of things, would be really difficult for clubs, also like Manchester United, to spend 100 million euro for Sancho, 100 million euro for Grealish. really, really difficult. So if we will be in the same situation, I would expect just one big move and then good ones and nothing big. Then if we will be back in normality with fans in the stadium and everything, for sure we can consider for this kind of moves also for Jack Grealish, and we will see what kind of team will make the right bid. But at the moment there is nothing advanced. The links are true just because many clubs are following this player, but at the moment there is absolutely nothing advanced or serious.
I mean, it's great to hear that you rate him so highly. Someone with your knowledge, it's great. As a Villa fan, to hear that you like Jack Grealish so much. I mean, another player that's possibly in the world class bracket is Lionel Messi, Fabrizio. That's one that I really want to see go through in the summer. Him go to Man City, simply because I want to see him playing in the Premier League. Do you see that happening?
At the moment, it's really impossible to say because Leo doesn't know what he's going to do. He told to his father, to his lawyer, that he wants to wait for the elections of Barcelona. So they will meet with Barcelona new board immediately after the election. He wants to look at the project, who will be the president after the problems he had with Bartomeu, what kind of people will be in the board after the problems he had with the board. And also he wants to know about the new manager, if Barcelona will change the manager. I think yes. And what manager they will go to appoint. So they have to decide about the revolution of the club. Leo wants to know about new life at Barcelona and deciding if staying and discussing a new contract or leaving the club or joining or Manchester City or Paris Saint-Germain. So for sure, Manchester City are like ready if Leo Messi will decide to leave Barcelona to try and to talk with him and using Pep Guardiola as the perfect possibility to try again with Leo. But also Paris Saint-Germain are ready to try using, in this case, Neymar and a lot of money and a new project for him. So it will be interesting, in my opinion, in the coming months to see what's going on with Leo, because at the moment, nothing is decided yet. He told to his people around him that he wants to talk with Barcelona. It's also a matter of respect after all his life spent at Barcelona and with this club, to talk with them, to understand about the new project. And if he feels that he can win at Barcelona, I can't exclude staying in Barcelona. But at the moment, the situation is complicated. So he will decide, like in March, in April, he will change his mind. We don't know. But for sure, he's considering also the opportunity of leaving the club, as I mentioned, with Manchester City and with Paris Saint-Germain in the race.
I mean, Martin, it would be absolutely fantastic to see Messi play his trade in the Premier League. It would be unbelievable. And I guess Pep sorting out his future last year and signing that new deal, that's a big factor as well.
Yeah, you'd think so. And obviously it's interesting to hear that it is probably a two-horse race as things stand. I think obviously there's not many people that could sign Lionel Messi. So yeah, interesting to hear that it's probably between those two as things stand. But same, I would love to see him in the Premier League. It would be amazing. And obviously this isn't prime Messi. We've seen that this season. He's sort of regressed maybe a little bit, but I'd like to see how much of that is down to the sort of discontent at the club and how much of it is down to obviously his age. But Lionel Messi could play in the Premier League at 60. I think he's just that good. We'll see.
Fabrizio, would you like to see Messi come and play in a different league and test himself in a different league, much like the way Ronaldo has? He's moved around the leagues, hasn't he? Whereas Messi's always been La Liga, always been Barcelona. Would you like to see him have his legacy at Barca and be a one-club man, or would you actually like to see him try somewhere else?
No, I think absolutely, as you mentioned, that it would be great to see Leo Messi in a different league. I don't know if the Premier League or in the Liga. I would prefer in the Premier League, obviously, because it's the best league in the world. So it would be like really amazing to see Leo in a different country, in a different league, with a different football, total different football. How he could do in this world. Also, if he's not young, as you mentioned, but he would be like ready to show his magic also in the Premier League. So it would be really amazing to see this kind of possibility. If I was a Barca fan, I would never say these words, just because I imagine for a Barca fan to look at Leo Messi in another club would be something really strange and impossible to accept. But that's football. Imagine how changed the situation at Barcelona in the last 3 or 4 years. It's like they destroyed everything. They ended up last summer to leaving Luis Suarez, leaving the club for free and joining Atletico Madrid, and he's the best player in the league in this moment. So really, they are doing crazy things, and in football, really everything can change in some years. So also looking at Leo Messi in Premier League is possible now, and we will see. What will be really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, Manchester City's title rivals, Liverpool, obviously struggling a little bit this season, hit a little bit of bad form. With all their front three approaching 30, it does feel like there needs to be some kind of evolution in the coming years. Fabrizio, is Mbappe going to be part of that, do you think?
I think with Mbappe is the most complicated situation, the most complicated on the market today, just because he's negotiating with Paris Saint-Germain. So Mbappe at the moment is not negotiating with any other club. I see a lot of rumors with Real Madrid and with Liverpool. But as I mentioned, in this moment with the pandemic, signing Kylian Mbappe, you have to imagine that you have to spend, I don't know if 200 million euro to pay to Paris Saint-Germain. You have to pay salary that will be around 40 million euro, 30 or 40 million euro per season for 5 years after taxes. So imagine how much would cost to sign Kylian Mbappe, and also commission to the agent, and also to pay at the moment of the signing of the contract. So it would be something really big. And in this moment, for clubs also like Real Madrid, like Liverpool, it's really difficult to plan for this kind of move. Then if the situation will change in the coming months and we will be back to normality, then who knows, just because he's still negotiating with Paris Saint-Germain. So his priority is to talk with Paris Saint-Germain. The president of Paris Saint-Germain, the owner, Nasser Al-Khelaifi, is going with all efforts to convince Kylian Mbappe to stay, to extend his contract, and more in the coming weeks. But at the moment, the situation is still open. What I want to say is that in this moment, it's really difficult for the clubs, as I mentioned with Liverpool, but it's the same with Paris Saint-Germain. Paris Saint-Germain can't spend any money this winter. They are signing Dele Alli, trying to sign Dele Alli on simple loan with no buy option. And look at what's going on with Liverpool. They're looking for a centre-back, but they can't spend money. So they were looking for some possible loan deals. Then they decided to stay with this team. So imagine that signing Mbappe with this kind of money in this situation is really, really difficult. So let's see. And we hope to be back in the normality also in the transfer cells in our lives, just to be back also with big moves. But in this moment, it's really difficult.
Yeah, I mean, we'd all love to see crowds back in the stadiums. That's what we all want to see. You just mentioned Liverpool, and you've said no centre back coming in January. A player you've already mentioned is Upamecano. Who would you say is the favourite to land him if he does move in the summer?
And for sure, the club is pushing so much in these weeks at Bayern Munich, just because they are obviously in the same league. And when they see some interesting player in the Bundesliga, they are always ready to go for him, a part of strikers, because they had Lewandowski in these years and they were not looking to players like Holland or different ones like Timo Werner, but with Upamecano, they are going to push because they want a new centre-back next summer. So Upamecano is in the list of Bayern Munich. Also, other clubs are interested, like Chelsea and like Liverpool, like Paris Saint-Germain. So next summer will be an interesting race, just because you don't have to find agreement with Leipzig. You have the release clause, 42 million euro. So he's available on the market if you pay the release clause next summer, but you have to find agreement with the player and he has to decide and everything. So also staying in the same league, in the Bundesliga with Bayern Munich, would be probably smart from the player, but also Premier League chances and Paris Saint-Germain chances are the big ones. So he will decide in the coming months. Nothing is done at the moment, but for sure Bayern are pushing. They want Upamecano. Will be an interesting race, I'm sure.
I mean, Martin, for me, that's the most interesting transfer that's possibly upcoming, because he's so good. Every time I watch him play, he impresses me. He's just so unique, and someone's going to be getting a very good player there, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't see the 42 million euro release clause putting off too many of the big clubs, to be honest. It's going to be a real struggle to see Leipzig keeping hold of him for sure in the summer. And like Fabrizio says, it comes down to the player at that point. So it'll be interesting, whether he stays in Germany, whether he goes back. Obviously, he's from France, so that could appeal to him, going to PSG, and obviously the lure of the Premier League. So he's got some options there, hasn't he? But yeah, like you say, he's just a complete defender, isn't he? So strong, so quick, good on the ball. He even carries the ball out of defence so well. So he's one of those defenders that's actually fun to watch as well. There aren't too many centre backs where you're like, oh, I love watching him, but he's one of them. And obviously great age as well. So yeah, definitely that'll be one to watch in the summer. And I'm convinced he'll be off somewhere. So we'll see.
I mean, Fabrizio, you can imagine when people found out you were coming on the show, you can imagine we got bombarded with questions and things that people wanted to know from you. So the first one's from Dino FC. He's saying that Edin Dzeko has been linked with a potential return to Man City. Is there anything in that?
No. There is nothing. There are problems between Edin Dzeko and Roma, yes. He's out from the squad at this moment just because he had a fight with the manager, Fonseca. But at the moment, there is nothing with Manchester City.
Is there anything with anyone in the Premier League with Dzeko?
No, at the moment, no. At the moment, no, just because he has a big salary. It's 7.5 million euro after taxes. So, or you go to top clubs, or you stay at Roma. In my opinion, he will stay.
Interesting. And sticking with Man City, and one that's very interesting to Martin and myself because it's Villa. Douglas Luiz, we've had Matt Gainey ask how likely is it that Pep's going to activate his release clause in the summer?
He's appreciated by Manchester City and by Pep, but also by other clubs. It will be another interesting one. Also because remember that with release clauses, yes, you can activate the release clauses, but you have to need the okay from the player. So the green light from the player. And we will see with many clubs involved what he will decide. But for sure, he's appreciated. He's one of the names. But also other top clubs are looking at him. So it will be interesting next summer, I think.
Absolutely did not want to hear that other top clubs are looking at Douglas Luiz. And Villa are one of the few teams that have actually bought someone in this January in Morgan Sanson. Would you expect any other business from the Villa? Because let's face it, we need another striker.
Yes, I think some opportunities could arrive in the coming days. If they have, as I mentioned, opportunity, I mean loan deals with buy option, this kind of opportunity, they will go just because they spend money on Sanson. So it won't be easy to go for another top deal in January, just because, as we mentioned, in this transfer window, it's really complicated. So if some opportunities will arrive, we'll consider this. If not, they can also stay with this team. There is nothing advanced yet at the moment, but you know better than me that in the last days, opportunities can arrive.
Fingers crossed, because as I say, I think we definitely need an alternative to Watkins. I think he's going to burn out by the end of the season. And staying with the striker theme, I mean, everybody wants a goal scorer, don't they? If a goal scorer comes available, loads of teams are going to be having a look. But Everton seem to want an alternative to Calvert-Lewin as well, don't they?
Yes, but they had a lot of opportunities in the last weeks, like Arkadiusz Milik and different players, and they turned down a lot of opportunities just because they want to decide for the right one. So also in this case, if they have a good opportunity, they go. If not, they can stay like this. It's the same that Liverpool did with the centre-back, and a lot of clubs are thinking on this way just because they don't want to waste money in this moment. So yes, this is a possibility to see Everton doing a surprise move for a striker, but at the moment there is still nothing advanced. So I think it would be like a deadline day move if they have some opportunities. If not, as I mentioned with Villa and with Liverpool, they could stay like this.
Yeah, but West Brom as well, they look like they need a goal scorer if they're to have any chance of staying in the Premier League this season. Is there anything coming out of there?
Also, another club looking. I think they will sign the striker. I think, yes. At the moment, I don't know any name advanced yet, but they will sign the striker. I've heard, so they're working on it, yes.
I mean, it's been absolutely fascinating to talk to you, and we really, really appreciate your time. Two things to finish on. One, if you had to predict one of the transfers that we've spoke about would definitely go through, which would you choose?
I would choose Dele Alli to Paris Saint-Germain because really it's like a particular situation because it's a done deal. It's really a done deal ready to be completed. Only if Tottenham will find a replacement will be completed, but the deal is like ready. So there is agreement between all the parties to go. So it's a ready deal, not done, but a ready deal. And it's up to Tottenham. But I think in the coming days something happens. So I would say Dele Alli because at the moment it's the most advanced.
Really interesting. And the second thing, the final thing from me, is there anything in the Premier League that we haven't asked you about that is potentially in the offing?
I think no. We mentioned a lot of clubs just because Chelsea are not moving at the moment. And also we mentioned about Manchester United and Manchester City not moving. I would say probably it would be interesting to see some new contracts in the coming weeks. With many clubs involved. For example, De Bruyne with Manchester City, they are really close. Tottenham are working with Son to extend this contract. And then Liverpool with open negotiation with Van Dijk to extend this contract. So in these coming months, top clubs will work on top contracts for their top players. So it will be interesting on this side to see also what happens. Because trust me, in this market, as we mentioned for Mbappé, as for many players, signing new contracts is like signing new players with the stars you have in the team. So it would be so interesting to see this kind of situations.
Well, Fabrizio, thanks ever so much for your time. It's been fascinating to hear from you, fascinating to hear how you go about your day-to-day work as well and really pick your brain. Apologies for the bombardment of questions that we've given you. I hope the next few days aren't as busy. Well, actually, no, I hope you are busy in the next few days because we all want to see transfers go through. But thanks ever so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Really big pleasure, guys. And thank you again for the invitation. And we'll talk soon. Thanks.
Well, Martin, that was great to get Fabrizio on, wasn't it?
Yeah, pleasure to speak to Mr. Here We Go. So yeah, hopefully we can speak to him again further down the line. Hopefully when transfers get a little bit more busy.
Yeah, I imagine the summer will be way more interesting than January, to be fair. But I imagine also, from what he says, he'll be more busy in the summer months. But yeah, great podcast, I think. I really enjoyed speaking to him, and it feels like a good time to say if you're not subscribed to Who Scored with your post notifications on, then please go and do that, as we're obviously trying to grow the channel. 8 episodes in, I think we are now, and we're trying to grow the podcast all the time. So yeah, give the video a like, as well if you have enjoyed it, and comment with what you thought of what Fabrizio said. So yeah, Martin, thanks for joining me. Back next week with Jonathan. Looking forward to it already.